Hi, this is Derek Murphy from Creativity. I'm going to talk a little bit about writing conferences in general, and also some of the writing conferences that I've gone to recently and some of the ones that I've spoken at. I have a love-hate relationship with writing conferences. Generally, a lot of the bigger ones that I've been to have been traditionally oriented, so that they focus a little bit more on supporting traditionally published authors. And what that usually means is there's a lot of stuff on craft and the art of writing and the finishing the book, maybe the productivity stuff. And then the idea is to pitch your book to an agent, so they focus a lot on like your query and your pitch and practicing your query and pitch, hopefully getting picked up by an agent, and then having that agent sell your manuscript to a publishing company. That's the old-fashioned, traditionally publishing route to success, which I don't personally recommend because I've had better luck self-publishing. And so what's a little saddening for me personally coming to writing retreats is that I hear a lot of book marketing advice that is really old-fashioned and doesn't really work. Even in the traditionally publishing community, nobody really knows how to sell more books, because the stuff that they're doing is like getting in the bookstores, but they don't know how to reach readers or sell more books online or take advantage of Amazon. And actually traditionally publishing can be a disadvantage because you have less control over your publishing platform or your Amazon page, your description, even your book cover, which normally is good. If you can get traditionally published, they'll at least have a pretty high quality book cover that should sell the book, because they know that they will always choose the cover that's going to sell more copies. For the most part, although indie published covers usually need to be a little bit more obvious and attention grabbing and a little less creative and different. Those are some of the reasons I don't like traditionally published or the major writing conferences. That there's a lot of people who they're really they don't look down on self-publishing. It's just that they don't really understand it, and they don't really know the guerrilla marketing techniques that indie publishers and indie authors have been using. So there's a huge disconnect. So they encourage authors to keep finishing their book, but they don't really help to market, or the advice they give to market the book doesn't really work in 2017, or is really not very intuitive. It's not very easy to figure out. They say stuff like, I heard someone at a conference recently say something like, YouTube is going to be a big thing. I don't know, or Snapchat, like I don't know how it's going to work, but somehow if whoever figures out YouTube or Snapchat is just going to do well and reach a lot of readers. That's sure, that could be true, but they don't really know how that process works. And there are some social media platforms that are good for reaching readers, and there are some that aren't. Recently I went to the Smarter Artist Summit, which was in Austin, Texas, and it's a really different style of writing conference, because most writing conferences are put together by people who offer services, or they're sponsored by people who offer services. So maybe, the one I went to in San Francisco, Smashwords was there, Kobo, Draft to Digital, a lot of big publishing services or companies that help authors to publish. They make their money by helping authors to get their books out into the world. So they're not really huge on the marketing aspect, because they're attracting authors and then selling services. So the difference with Smarter Artist Summit was that it was these are indie authors who have built a big community and audience and Facebook page. They have a lot of followers. They've been doing weekly, not podcasts, but like video, what do you call them? Just kind of like an online meetup with their community. So they've built these really strong relationships. They've done some really cool, interesting self-publishing experiments. And then they started putting together these conferences. So this was the first one that I went to. I was really excited to go because I got to see a lot of people that I've met in the past that are old friends of mine, and then new people who I know online, but I've never met face-to-face. And that's a huge part of why I go to conferences, is just so that I can make that personal connection. So at this conference, I got to speak to David Gaughran, who I haven't met in person, and Chris Fox. I got to meet T.S. Paul, Monica Leonel, a bunch of people who I think are doing really smart things online, and I was really excited to meet them. So I wrote down a few things that I learned at this conference. One of them, I was talking a lot about pre-orders, because I thought, at first I was really excited. Generally, pre-orders on Amazon don't give you a big boost during launch, and then I thought that they did, which I was really excited about. What seems to happen is that on other platforms, if you get 1,000 pre-orders, I got 1,500 on my last book launch. So on other platforms, that would count on the day of launch, and that would push you up. So if you wanted to hit like a bestseller list, those sales would all count on launch day. On Amazon, those sales would count on launch day. They show up on your sales dashboard, and you get the money when you launch. But there's not a huge spike in rank because they've slowly been giving you the boost in rank when the book actually got sold or bought earlier. However, what usually happens is like they kind of suppress it for a few days, and then it will start going up quite a bit. So even though like I got my 1,500 pre-orders and then I got like 200 or 300 sales, I think they actually did something where they gave me, they broke up the pre-orders so they didn't all count on the launch day. I had like 200 the day before, and then 1,200 or something, and then 200 more the next day. And that 200 was what really boosted my sales rank a lot. So even though I wasn't expecting such a huge sales rank, I predicted that 1,500 pre-orders would get me to about 500 in the Amazon store, and I was off by like 2. I was at like 502 in the Amazon store, and then slowly it started going back up, 700, 1,000. I think I'm at like 1,600. No, actually, I think I'm still in the top 1,000, which is pretty good. But that was kind of something interesting. Also, I heard from David Gogren that your free downloads are weighted at about 10% of sales, which is something I didn't know. I don't know if that's exactly true, but basically, if you get 25,000 downloads, that used to it used to put your book on top of the bestseller lists, and then you would get a lot more visibility, and then you would sell a lot more books. That doesn't really work anymore because they divided between the free and the paid categories on Amazon. But what does happen, like I got 25,000 free downloads, and that pushed up my rank quite a bit. And then when I switched back to paid, my paid rank was higher. So I think I was at like 1,200, and then I got 25,000 free downloads with BookBub, and then I was up to about 600 in the Amazon store. So that's it takes a lot of sales to make that kind of difference. So even though I got a lot of free downloads, they were counting as sales. They don't get as much juice as like an actual sale, but I think calling it about 10%, I think that's probably roughly accurate. So you do need, if you do a free campaign, you need to push for a lot of downloads, but that does weigh a little bit towards your paid sales rank, which is why it is great. A lot of authors will be like, why would I give away why would I give away free books if I want to sell books? My book is valuable, I want to make money or whatever. Giving away a lot of free books is a really great way to get more readers and also to boost your paid rank, which will bring more sales, which is why it's important. And it works really well. When I started publishing last year, I was talking about all the free giveaways I was going to do, and a lot of authors were skeptical and wondered like, well, I'm curious to know how those free giveaways will translate into paid book sales, because a lot of authors haven't had luck with that. For me, it's worked really well. I think it can work really well if you know what you're doing, and if all of your other pieces of your platform are working together really well. Something I heard from Chris Fox that was really interesting, I don't say enough, is you never want to launch a book by asking your friends and family to buy it, which is how everybody launches a book. So if you don't know what you're doing, you're going to tell everybody on Facebook. You'll be like, hey, my book is on sale. Please support me by buying it. What happens is Amazon will look at all those sales and they'll try to see a pattern, and they'll see these random people who have nothing in I want to say in contact, but that's not the right word. They don't have anything in common. So Amazon has trouble placing. They may see, your dad or your mom, they bought these other products and then they bought your book. And so they try to advertise your book to other people who bought similar products to what your mom and dad have been buying, which is not your right audience at all. So Amazon tries to promote your book to the audience that you've set up for them, which is the wrong audience, and nobody buys it. And then Amazon decides your book doesn't sell, so they stop trying to promote it. So you need to not ask people to buy it, because it actually hurts your also bots. What you want to do is make sure you're building a targeted audience and trying to sell only to people who buy books in your genre, who are real readers of your genre, so that you're teaching Amazon what kind of person might be interested in your book, and you'll get cleaner also bots, which is really important for long-term sales. So that's something that's kind of critical that I think is overlooked too often. And again, this is something that you would never hear at a traditional writers conference, because they don't know anything about also bots, like gaming your also bots or getting like cleaning your also bots. That's a really high level marketing strategy that's so important, but only indie authors are really talking about it, because we have the control to see what's going on with our Amazon page, and we really need to make sure our Amazon page is working for us, because that's where all of our sales are going to come from. I also heard from T.S. Paul, who writes young adults. He writes kind of a FBI / supernatural thrillers, and he does really well with Facebook advertising. So he told me one tip, a lot of things like when I personally try to do Facebook advertising, I might be tempted to throw my book cover in there. And he said, just use one pretty image that's going to appeal to your target readers. And that's all. And then just use the text for the details and the price and everything else. I think that's a really important tip. You want the image just to be, like, you don't want it to be salesy. You just want it to be pretty and attractive to your target readership to get them to slow down and read your offer. So that's something I'll start to do once I don't think Facebook advertising is a huge value unless you have a lot of books and a lot of series, so that you get a lot of click-through and sell-through. But that is something that can work really well. I know Mark Dawson has done really well with Facebook ads. And one last thing I was going to mention was the event organizers, and we're talking about a reader's journey. Basically, you want people to, when they sign up to buy your book or when they sign up to your list, that's the very beginning of your potential relationship with them. It's up to you as the author to build out that relationship. So you need to have like a 100-day plan towards engaging new readers, teaching them about yourself, your books, getting them to talk to you, to be interactive or engaged. You want to have content that goes out to your list automatically for, I think, about 12 weeks or 100 days. So like something every week that gets them to come back to your site or to your Facebook page, to talk to you, to be involved, because you need to build that reader to turn those people, especially if you're doing a lot of free campaigns or giveaways, you need to turn those people into actual fans of your work. And that's something you need to do deliberately and long term. It's not something you can do short term. So you need to kind of keep showing up on their radar and providing value and reminding them who you are and what you're trying to help them with, whether you're a fiction or nonfiction author. That's something I'm going to try to focus more on in some of my upcoming courses. I'm going to see if I have something that's like a 1,000 subscribers in 10 days course. I'm going to try to build in like a section of how to do a reader's journey or how to engage your readers over a 100-day period. But I got this tip from this conference, from the Smarter Artist Conference. So I definitely recommend this conference, and the other one I recommend is the 20 Books to 50K conference, which is another conference set up, made by indie authors for indie authors, from a really popular Facebook group that I've been recommending a lot, which was founded by mostly Michael Anderle and some of the other guys who are doing kind of like space opera sci-fi and are doing really well, but really focusing on, the statistics, the analytics, the technical Amazon side of it, advertising, because like I said, if you're self-publishing, you have all this control and you can do really well as long as you know exactly what things work and what things don't. So they've been doing a lot of testing and reporting, which is really helpful for other indie authors. And like I said, this is the stuff that actually really works to sell more books. So a lot of other writing conferences might help you to finish the work. It might help you to improve your craft a little bit and get support, but it won't help you sell more books. This is like to get the really advanced, high-level book marketing stuff that actually works for most self-publishing authors, and also to some extent for traditionally published authors who have a little bit of control over your author platform or your product. I know some traditionally published authors don't really have that much control. These are things that really work. I think going to a conference like this and meeting other indie authors that are actually doing really, really well. I also got to meet Jasmine Walt and like a dozen other best-selling authors at the Smarter Artist Summit, which was really important for me. I'm doing pretty well with my fiction after a year, but you know, I'm looking forward to making 5 figures a month or mid 5 figures. Like I have friends, like I can't wait to get to 10K a month, but I have friends who are making 30 or 40K a month, or even over 100,000 a month, which is incredible. So I can't wait to be getting to that point, and I know I still have a lot to learn. And there's very few conferences where these kind of authors are actually going to, because most authors who are actually making, you know, multiple 5 figures, they don't really need to hang out at writers conferences, and they feel frustrated, as like I do, when they hear all this advice that is really basic and not actually very helpful for most authors. I do think it's important to meet writers face to face, but I don't think it's very important to meet a whole bunch of authors who are really basic, who are just starting out, trying to finish their first book, because with those authors, there's going to be a bunch of like service providers who are helping authors to publish their first book, which is important for some people. But if you've already published a lot of books and you actually want to make a living as a writer and sell more books, you need to be going to high-level advanced conferences with writers who are actually making a living, who know the advanced marketing stuff that works. I don't think there are, like, I don't think last year there were a lot of writing conferences that did this kind of upper level marketing. And now there are starting to be more events as the indie author community. I think previously the indie author community have been a lot of authors like myself. Like I have my own platform, but I'm not really a community. A lot of indie authors are now starting to come together and build communities, which I think is excellent. And they provide a lot of helpful value for new indie authors, so they can skip kind of all of the basic stuff that doesn't really work and get really into the high level details of how you can build a platform quickly and start actually getting visibility and selling your books. I think it's a really exciting time. Something else that was said at this conference was we are still at the very beginning of the self-publishing movement. So even though like I've been doing it for the last decade, and I feel like some people feel like they've missed, you know, that it was really easy to get into Kindle publishing a few years ago. It was really easy to make money in 2014. Things keep changing, and some things get harder, and there's a lot more, you know, competition, but we're still very early in the movement, and authors who know what they're doing and are providing the right types of books to hungry markets that are looking for better books to read, there's still a tremendous opportunity to make a lot of money, which is exciting. And I think there's more support than there ever has been before for indie authors. So anyway, this was kind of a rambling video. I hope that helped a little bit if you're thinking about going to writers' conferences. I hope I see you at one. I try to go to about 5 conferences a year. Ideally, I'll be speaking at some, but some I just go, like if I know there's going to be a lot of people there and it works into our travel plans, I'll just show up because I want to meet authors and talk to people face to face. I think that's really important for authors, and also just because if you work online, writing can be really isolating. It's great to meet people in person and make real relationships and friendships. Thanks. Bye-bye.